Finding the inverse of a function. The first thing we're going to do is replace this f of x with y. Now what we're going to do is we swap out the y's and x's in order to find the inverse. So this y becomes x and both of these x's become y's. So we have x equals y minus 9 over y minus 2. So now we need to solve for y. The first thing I notice is that one of my y's is in the denominator of this fraction, so I need to get it out of the fraction. To do that, I multiply both sides by that denominator. So on this side, I'll have y minus 2 times x. And this side, this entire fraction will be multiplied by y minus 2. Now what happens is both of these would go away and we'll just be left with y minus 9. On this side, we will distribute that x, so y times x is xy, and negative 2 times x is negative 2x. So now we have a simpler equation to work with. Now let's continue solving for y. Notice how both of my y's are on opposite sides of the equal sign. I need to get them on the same side. So what I'm going to do is move this xy. Now they are a single term. xy is being multiplied to each other, but that entire term is being subtracted by negative 2x. So in order to move this xy, I have to either add or subtract. Seeing as it's in the front, I go by the sign that it is. xy is positive, so to move that, I need to subtract it. So I subtract xy from both sides. On the left, I'll just have negative 2x. Over here, I'll have y minus 9 minus xy. Now my y's are on the same side of the equal sign, but there's not just y's over there. I notice there's a 9 on this side. I'm going to have to move it away from both of these terms. So to move that, I'm going to have to add 9 to the other side. So then that will give me 9 minus 2x equals y minus xy. But we're not done solving for y yet. Now I'm going to look for my greatest common factor. I notice that there is a y in both of these terms, so I can divide that out. So I'll be left with y times 1 minus x. Take a y out here, I'm left with 1. Take a y away from here, I'll just have x left. So now I'm almost finished. I notice that y is being multiplied by 1 minus x. To get this y by itself, I have to undo the multiplying and divide both sides by 1 minus x. So that will give me 9 minus 2x over 1 minus x on this side, and on this side I'll just be left with y. So that would be my answer. The inverse would be 9 minus 2x over 1 minus x. Now let's look at another one. So changing the numbers up, I figured we can try it again. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the f of x y. And then what I'm going to do is make the y x and make these x's y. So now I can go ahead and start solving for y. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by y minus 4 in order to get the y out of this denominator. So I do that, and I'll have y minus 4 times x, and then this entire fraction times y minus 4. So doing that, I'll distribute this x. I'll get xy minus 4x. On this side, I'll just be left with y plus 7. Now I can go ahead to try to get the y's on one side. So I notice that I have a y here and a y here, one on both sides of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is move this xy to this side. So to do that, I notice that again, even though x and y are together, they're both being added or subtracted from the second term. In this case, 4x is subtracting from it. But since it's in the front, I gotta go by the sign that it is, and since this is positive, I would move it by subtracting it. So I subtract both sides by xy. Doing so will leave me with a negative 4x on the left, and on this side I'll have y plus 7 minus xy. Okay, so now I notice that it's not just y's on this side. I have a 7 there that I'm going to have to move. To move this 7, I'm going to have to subtract it because it's being added on this side. So subtracting 7 on both sides, I'll end up with negative 7 minus 4x equals y minus xy. Now looking on this side, it's just y's. I notice both of these terms have a y in it, so I can divide it out. So I'll be left with 1 minus x, because dividing y by y leaves me with 1 here. Dividing out y here from xy gives me just x. Now in order to get this y by itself, I notice it's being multiplied by 1 minus x. To undo multiplying, we gotta divide. So I divide both sides by 1 minus x, and I'm left with negative 7 minus 4x over 1 minus x. And that would be the inverse.